The Silence of the Lambs is the 1991 Academy Award-winning film adaptation of Thomas Harris's 1988 best-selling novel directed by Jonathan Demme. Although the producers of The Silence of the Lambs did not market it as such, the film is technically a sequel to Michael Mann's 1986 film Manhunter, which is based on the first book in Thomas Harris's popular fiction series Red Dragon, which became a movie of the same title based on the same book in 2002. The Thomas Harris books Hannibal and Hannibal Rising were also adapted into feature films bearing the duplicate titles as the books. There also has been 2 TV series based on Harris's characters titled Hannibal and Clarice. This film is popularly labeled as a psychological horror thriller, although it could also be described as a drama, neo-noir, mystery, or even a detective flick. Genre aside, it remains a classic that holds up to this day. It is a story that follows a textbook 3-act narrative structure. Act 1, or the setup, follows Clarice Starling, our protagonist and primary narrator, played by Jodie Foster, a fledgling FBI agent, is sent to interview the notorious yet incarcerated serial killer Dr. Hannibal Lecter, played by Sir Anthony Hopkins. She's trying to gain his insight into identifying and or locating a serial killer at large known as Buffalo Bill. Lecter gives Clarice a cryptic clue that she eventually deciphers, which leads her to a storage unit containing a severed head in a jar. This leads to rising action, which leads to more visits between Lecter and Starling, despite the risk involved, which continue to have them work together to gain a deeper understanding of Buffalo Bill. Act 2, or the confrontation, sees Lecter being transferred to a new facility and Clarice being removed from the case, albeit temporarily. Meanwhile, Buffalo Bill's identity is discovered. Clarice is put back on the case and ends up facing Bill alone as the FBI prepares to storm his home. Act 3, or the resolution, features a showdown between Buffalo Bill and Clarice in his basement, in which she ultimately defeats him, resulting in his death by bullets. Hannibal escapes from his new location, Clarice becomes a full-fledged FBI agent with honors. In the finale, Clarice receives a phone call from the escaped Lecter, who is now at large, living his best life. The mise-en-scene of the film is a testament to the work of Jonathan Demme and his team, who create distinct settings such as Buffalo Bill's doomy and baleful abode, the sterile prison cells of Hannibal Lecter, and the gritty FBI training grounds, each contributing to the tone, the characters' psychological states, and the verisimilitude of the film. Dim lighting, shadows, and stark contrast are used throughout the film to highlight the dark nature of certain characters and the overall dark theme. The use of makeup in the film is realistic and believable in the gruesome scenes. The costume designer does a remarkable job of showing how disgustingly eccentric Buffalo Bill is. The use of several different camera angles and the shot framing effectively conveys the power dynamics and emotional states of the characters. In some of the scenes with Lecter, the camera looks down on Clarice, emphasizing his perceived control. The Silence of the Lambs features a shifting camera perspective that provides the audience with different characters' point of view, although the story is mainly told through Clarice's perspective. We see this through the camera technique of following Clarice at the beginning of the film. A lot of close-ups using long telephoto lenses are used throughout the production, and most of the male characters look straight into the camera, while Clarice does not. Demme forces the viewer to feel the intimidation that she is experiencing. As she gains control and becomes stronger and bolder, we start to see Starling looking directly into the viewer's eyes in shots. Although Sir Anthony won an Academy Award for Best Actor in The Silence of the Lambs, it's Jodie Foster's Oscar-winning portrayal of Agent Clarice Starling that I choose to dwell upon when discussing acting in this picture. Foster physically embodies the character in a manner consistent with the film's context. She effectively portrays Clarice's vulnerability and underlying strength when surrounded by men who underestimate her due to her gender and appearance. Foster's performance conveys Clarice's internal world through her emotions, expressions, actions, and reactions to the intense situations she encounters throughout the film, showing rather than telling the audience. Clarice's characterization as a determined, intelligent, and vulnerable individual grappling with past trauma and the pressures of a male-dominated workplace remains consistent throughout the movie's 1 hour and 50-minute runtime. After receiving the dailies for scenes shot in Pittsburgh of the raid on Buffalo Bill's house and Agent Starling following a lead in Bill's hometown, editor Craig McKay thought that instead of editing these two as separate linear scenes, they should be intercut. He tried running this up the chain of command to director Jonathan Demme, but was unsuccessful, so he cut both scenes linearly. A week later, with Demme in the editing room, he asked McKay, "Why didn't you parallel that?" Parallel editing is a technique that involves intercutting or cross-cutting between two or more scenes happening simultaneously in different locations. In the climax, the film cuts between the FBI's raid on what the audience believes is Buffalo Bill's house and Buffalo Bill's actual house where Agent Starling is unknowingly meeting Bill. McKay labored over this for 3 days, breaking up the coverage, extending and shortening moments, and trying to make it work. It wasn't until he found another unrelated shot of Crawford, Starling's boss, and put it in that it actually worked. The misdirection this technique creates leads to a shocking reveal when Clarice finds herself alone with Buffalo Bill. The parallel editing effectively controls the pace and story, it heightens tension, and manipulates the audience's emotions. It is one of the best edits in film history, in my opinion. Although I hold this movie in high regard, there's an aspect of it that I do not like, and that aspect is the character Dr. Frederick Chilton, played by Anthony Heald. The character serves his purpose as a foil to Clarice and Hannibal, but sucks in doing so. He seems like a cheesy, generic, sleazy, privileged white guy in a suit. Every 80s movie had one. Is it bad casting, bad writing, or bad performance? It may be a combination of all three. Maybe I just hate his face. I don't know. Kurtwood Smith, the actor famous for playing Red Foreman in that 70s show, would have been a better choice for this role. I would have him play it close to the role that he had as Clarence in RoboCop. Despite the one flaw that I find in this movie, it remains timeless and will resonate for generations to come.